Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing, testing. Hello?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. If I could have your attention, please. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. My name's Anna Della Coombs, and I'm very pleased to be your facilitator this evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands we meet on tonight. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and the relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and I respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to the land and their cultural beliefs. I'm very pleased to welcome you all tonight to the Town of Gawler's Meet the Candidates session, and I'll run through for you how tonight's going to go. First of all, I acknowledge that we are live streaming tonight, and tonight's proceedings are going to be recorded. G'day to those of you tuning in from home. Just to clarify, it is only the lectern that's on camera, so those in the audience and those here beside me tonight aren't being filmed in your current position. Your questions will be captured though on audio. Tonight you'll be hearing from all of your candidates. We'll start with the 4 mayoral candidates, who will start by addressing you each individually for 3 minutes. We'll then work through the area councillor candidates, who will have 2 minutes each to address you. Candidates, I have warned some of you, but I will be a taskmaster with time. I want to make sure it's equitable, that you all have the equal opportunity to talk tonight. And I also respect the people here in your audience who are very eager to ask you questions and want to make sure that we have enough time to do that tonight as well. For this reason, you will hear a bell ring when you have 30 seconds of your time allocation to go. For mayoral candidates, that's at the 2.5 minute mark. For area councillor candidates, that's at the 1.5 minute mark. At the second ring, you're invited to finish your sentence, and I will ask you to be seated. Please note that the clock will not be stopped, and this is your chance to address your audience and not to engage with others. I'd like to set some expectations of our behaviour tonight. Today really is about asking challenging questions, and there may be emotion or strong feelings expressed about the issues that are important to all of you. This is to be encouraged and supported. However, everyone here tonight is to be respected and is to feel safe. Rude, disruptive, or inappropriate language or behaviour will not be tolerated. Impatience, ridicule, or personal attacks will not be accepted. You will be provided a warning, and if it continues, will not be allowed to continue to speak. If poor behaviour continues further, you will be asked to leave, and if required, this meeting will be suspended. Having said that, I'm absolutely confident that tonight we can work through the important issues to you in a way that is respectful and civil and observes these ways of working together. I'm seeking agreement for both the floor and the candidates that will work together tonight in this way. Thank you. Candidates are reminded that our agreement around rude, personal, inappropriate behaviour will not be tolerated, and if this occurs, you will be asked to be seated. I acknowledge that tonight many of your candidates are standing for the first time and are understandably nervous and may not be accustomed to public speaking. We congratulate you, as well as returning candidates, for your willingness to let your community meet you. Please make sure you lean into the mic so we can hear you clearly, along with those tuning in to the live stream or recording. After we hear from each of the candidates, we will move to questions from the floor. People are asked to raise their hand. There will be some roving microphones coming to you. Please only speak when you have a microphone in your hand so that we can all hear you clearly, and when you're invited to do so. We won't have time for follow-up, so once your question is posed, please return the microphone. You can direct your questions specifically to one of the candidates or pose it to the group, and candidates will be invited to respond. I'll do my utmost to ensure responses are equitable, and we'll look for a couple of responses to each question. Candidates, please keep your responses brief. I will follow up where responses are more lengthy. And again, please only respond when you have the microphone and when you're invited. Please stand in your place to take questions. Thank you very much for letting me go through those formalities. I think it's a really important way to set the scene for tonight. And thank you again, all of you. It's great to have a packed house here tonight. Those on the live recording can't see it, but we've nearly got every seat taken. And it's encouraging to see how many of you believe so strongly in your community and the people who may represent you. I'd like to invite Paul Little to the lectern. Paul is the mayoral candidate. Paul, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. The reason I'm standing for council as the mayor is I'd like some change. I think in the last few years we've had a few issues with transparency. So I'd like to enhance the fact that I don't wish to run the council that way. I want a more open and more transparent council. Before I go into my spiel, I had a concern about I raised the last council meeting and all councillors voted for, is our heritage area in this town is at risk for what has happened in Adelaide in relation to the Thevenard Barracks. It's near and dear to me, the Thevenard Barracks. As an ex-police officer, I spent 7 years there on and off. So if anybody has a question in my regard and in my transparency about heritage, I am totally in agreement that our heritage in this wonderful town should be maintained. So I'd like to get that out of the way. I've been talking to people on my walkabout who said that they were a bit concerned with me not being so open about that, but I am totally enacted that because my great-great-grandparents were married up on Cowan Street in 1858. So I have a big attachment to this town, has been for a lot of years. My main concern standing as mayor, like I said earlier, is I like transparency. I like the fact that we have more openness in council. I want us to be more engaging with the community. If we make a decision, to please explain why we made that decision. I know some matters have to be in confidential mode because of the infrastructure in relation to having contracts signed for works and stuff like that. But some of the stuff we go into confidence, as far as I'm concerned, is not needed, and we need to move on to make sure the people and residents of our Golan understand what we're doing. Another thing is I've had, as a mayor, I want to be able to engage with the suburbs, as I call them, Springwood, Aspire, Oleana Waters, Woodvale. In my walking around, because I delivered my pamphlets myself with about 20 helpers, people say we feel neglected. I want us to be an inclusive council where everybody in the town feels to be one of the town. I know we have to look after the main street, but we must not neglect, in my opinion, the areas outside the town. And while I'm talking about that, I think our entrances to this town need upgrading. We lack what I call finesse in regard to welcoming people into this town. So I would like people to consider me for mayor. And as people know, I've been a volunteer in this town for over 30 years. And when I was police, as a pensions officer for the ADF people, I was on the old hospital board, and I've also driven the hospital cars and assisted the elderly and people. And I'm involved with the suicide prevention area in relation to defence personnel. I would understand that, and I'd like your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul Little. Ian Tooley.
Thank you. I faithfully served as your councillor for 7 years and as your deputy mayor for 3, and I have a proven track record of serving in your best interests. Always accessible and responsive, I move more motions and ask more questions on behalf of you than any other elected member, and I'm proud of what I achieved on your behalf. I love our town, but after 7 years, I could no longer be a part of what this council does and what this council stood for. And so I resigned in order to campaign to totally renew, reclaim, reset our council. And I'm thrilled that 27 candidates are running for 11 positions. Why is our council wasting millions upon millions of your money on legal fees and legal fights, on boundary reform and follies, on consultant after consultant, on project budget overruns, on unnecessary extra staff, and on so many failed and failing projects? Why is there no vision for a vibrant and prosperous 21st century Golan? The answer is because we aren't attending to the basics like fixing the potholes, the footpaths, the roads. We're not cleaning the streets and the car parks. We're not attending to fixing the traffic and parking problems. Instead, we're putting concrete blocks in the middle of Lindott Road and make it even harder for people to travel. We're not activating Goose Island. We're not attracting events like the medieval fair and concerts on the green. We're not having Christmas parades and street parties like so many of our small neighbouring towns are. We're not building decent entry statements that let people know we are South Australia's first and most historic town. We're not grabbing tourism with both hands, like maximising the golden gift of an electric train to our CBD, bringing in the cashed up grey nomads with RV friendly, promoting our stunning riverine parklands, cycle paths and historic walks. We're not grabbing a finish for the Tour Down Under. We're not helping our sporting and community clubs to thrive instead of just surviving. We're not doing enough for the most vulnerable in our community, and we're not improving services and amenity in our town. The reasons are fourfold. Number one, this council has taken its eye off the ball and has involved itself more with failed follies and wasteful ego trips instead of attending to the basics, and it has hiked our rates in order to pay for that. It has been dominated by a faction for decades, a backwards-looking faction driven more by personal agenda and ideology than in serving your interests. Number three, this council hears only what it wants to hear and is no longer listening to the community voice and feedback if it ever did. And fourth, it has no vision for what a vibrant and thriving 21st century Gawler could be. This can all change at these elections if you use your vote and if you elect me and 10 other new councillors to lead a new council for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian Tooley. Karen Redmond.
Thank you. So thanks everyone for coming this evening. I bring a truly independent, contemporary and balanced approach to leadership that is grounded in 222 and beyond thinking. Embracing sustainable growth, understanding the strengths of our town and displaying strong advocacy and compassion is a hallmark of my leadership style. Gawler is growing at 2% per year for the last 10 years on average. When I entered council as an elected member in 2010, there had been little planning for our growth. There were big gaps in master plans and other relevant planning documents. We were sitting ducks for exploitation from external parties, and as a result, very vulnerable. Previous councils had not done the work, in my view. They had not planned for our future. Change has happened all around us. It's a constant thing. Over the last 8 years since I've been mayor, we have diligently and carefully brought Gawler into the 21st century. To go backwards is a mistake, in my opinion. There is still much work to be done to continue this contemporary and energetic approach to local government, understanding our strengths such as heritage and character, supporting our rural sector, yet bringing change that is sensible and supported by our community. Supporting our businesses and the development sector is vital for our future. Our community needs our support to remain strong and engaged, and above all, having the capacity to listen, enabling a green future through climate action and strong leadership. Compassion towards our most vulnerable, not just lip service. Actually doing the work and getting the job done takes more effort. It takes patience, discipline, and commitment. It takes time. It means showing up, being persistent, dusting yourself off and trying again if you face a setback. Leading and managing change means not everyone is going to agree with you. Some people will want no change or the change to be done differently. To be a true change leader, you must have the ability to stay calm and focused in the face of criticism. I do the work and am known to get things done. Looking to the future, my priorities will be working with our new council team, sport, including Carbethan and Essex Park and the redevelopments that are happening there, boundary reform, which is critical for our future, basics such as footpaths and better linkages for walking and cycling, advocacy for a community say in planning, and continuing to partner with local services to get better outcomes for people in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen Redmond. John Bolton.
The inclusion of Hewitt and part of Concordia that's in the 20-year development plan anyway, will reduce our rates and over time best ensure Gawler's identity. Now, I'm the underdog here. If you vote for me though, it won't be wasted because it's a preferential system and so you can choose whoever comes second and my losing vote will then go to them. I'm an Australian Liberal Conservative and I argue using facts. In 1895, every South Australian got the vote, whether they owned real estate and regardless of race. This meant in 1895, every Aboriginal man and woman got the vote here in South Australia before the suffragettes in the UK or the United States, which is in 1920. As a Conservative, I'm grateful for what I've inherited. Progressives prefer feelings to facts, but they should be grateful too. They should show some gratitude to farmers, to industry, to miners, who have created for these progressives the sort of life that only wealthy people could lead a mere 20 years ago. Now people are paralysed by the most bizarre progressive thinking of the loony left. A Christian got sacked from a football club only last week or the week before just for being a Christian. Young men with powerful male bodies play football against girls because people are too frightened to stand up and call out this sexism that pretends to be inclusive. People are too afraid to call out racists who seek a divisive black race constitutional power. Gawler Council should take down that black racist power campaign flag from our council chambers. Should stop telling us before every meeting who got here first. This once was Ghana land, but it's not Ghana land anymore, it's Australian. And I'm Australian, and stop dividing us on the basis of race. These things are important for Gawler because our council has been wasting money on nice to-dos. There is no emergency about climate. Don't waste my rate money on it. Manage it as it happens. It's not an emergency. Stop saying things like, that's a nice idea, let's raise the rates to fund it. They've spent all our money and they've indebted us for nearly $20 million and they've budgeted for an extra 15% rate hike over the next 3 years. It's time to change the way our council thinks about spending our money.
Thank you, John Bolton. We'll now move to the area councillor candidates. So as I said, we'll have 2 minutes each to address you. Can we start with Isaac Solomon, please?
Good evening, everyone. It's great to join you here tonight. For those of you who don't know, my name's Isaac. Of course, I'm a Gawler local. I first moved here when I started high school some years ago. I've grown up very involved in community sport, and you may have seen me talk about some local issues like transport and education before. Anyway, you're not here to listen to my life story, so I'll save that for the memoirs. But during this election time, I think there's one theme which I've noticed, and that's the failure to do the small things right. Local government isn't some grand thing about life or death decisions being made every day. It's about getting the things right that empower our community and make life easier for normal everyday people. When council doesn't do the small things properly, we notice. We notice when there's potholes in our streets. We notice when our small businesses struggle. We notice when we fail to care for our green spaces and natural environment. When young couples can't get planning approval for the home that they'll make their family home, and when our sporting clubs are neglected. Often these small things are swept under the rug and they become larger issues down the track. It's about local government should be about allowing people to be part of something bigger by supporting our sporting clubs and community groups, by managing our waste effectively, ensuring our roads, footpaths and parks are maintained properly, by working with state government to plan smarter and ensure everyone has access to shelter and public transport. It may be ironic coming from one of the youngest candidates here, but it's about time Gawler Council showed a little bit of maturity. Over the past few years, Gawler Council has been plagued by petty disagreements, rumours and one-upsmanship. It doesn't matter who started it, it's time that the infighting stopped. The council got on with the job and stopped wasting money on unnecessary legal battles. It's time that this council showed some maturity and focused on getting the small things done right. Thank you. I look forward to hearing questions from you later in the night.
Thank you, Isaac Solomon. Cody Davies, please.
Hello, everyone. My name's Cody Davies. I'm a first-term councillor on the Gawler Council. My background with council is that back 11 years ago now, I became involved as a community representative on Gawler's Youth Committee. Wanting to get involved further, I unsuccessfully ran for council back in 2014. Back then, I was running as a youth candidate. I joked at the time, everyone's always saying that youth are our future. Well, here I am. Unfortunately, it looks like I can't use that line anymore. I'm already 12 years older than some of the candidates here. So, you know, I'm only 32 and I've already become middle-aged. Instead, what I'd like to say to you now is that I'm a reliable councillor that gets stuff done. I make the effort to go beyond just reacting to what's put down in front of us as councillors and instead have been proactive in creating motions of my own. I push to get our meetings permanently archived on YouTube because I believe that people should be able to know what's going on inside our council. I also believe that our council is stronger when we can get everybody involved, which is why I initiated council's participatory budgeting project, where residents can decide part of our budget directly by voting. So thank you to the 300 residents who got involved in our first attempt for that this year. In summary, if what you're looking for in a council candidate is someone who still has fresh ideas and hasn't already been on the council forever, but is also reliable and already knows how to get things done in the bureaucracy of local government, then I'm your candidate. Vote 1, Cody Davies. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody Davies. Helen Hennessy, please.
Good evening, and thank you very much excuse me, for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I decided to offer myself as a candidate for council because I think if you live in a community, you have a responsibility to give back to it. And I think for me, I'd like to try that this time. I make a commitment to you that I'll work hard to ensure that the town of Gawler does a number of things. First of all, I'm going to have to look at my notes, genuinely engage with the community, to create economic leverage from the significant cultural tourism that this town has. I think we can do a lot in that area. I commit that we will go actively seek funding from the state and federal government to deal with the impact of the growth that we all know we're experiencing and can see on the roads almost every day. I'd like to strengthen and support all the community organisations. Gawler is blessed with hundreds of different groups, and I think it's time to recognise them, connect them, and introduce the newcomers to the town to the benefits of being able to contribute in that way. I'd like council to promote a buy local scheme to support all of our local businesses. I think it's particularly important at the moment that we do that. And I think, again, explaining and drawing attention to that would be most useful. And lastly, I'd like to work towards having an elected body that takes a collegiate approach to decision making and getting things done rather than certain egos dominating. Thank you very much. I'd welcome you having a look at my pamphlet later and I'll answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen Hennessy. Louise Drummond.
Good evening. Good evening. Local government is the most important level of government, as the decisions made directly affect the lives of everyone, all social circles and all ages. State and federal governments talk about economies, but we do not live in an economy. We live in a society. My life in Golan 18 years ago began by working with unemployed people, helping them gain skills and qualifications and enter into meaningful work. It gave me an understanding of that strata of society. It later included building a successful cleaning business from scratch, eventually giving work to 11 people. I've just sold that business to one of the women who worked for me. My years as chair of the Golan Business Development Group have enabled me to be involved in assisting other businesses to thrive and grow. I've had the opportunity to form good relationships with many businesses. I have also gained an understanding of council, as I have regular meetings and discussions with staff and councillors to represent the interests of the business community. I understand about the sensible application of resources to achieve a good return on investment. You pay rates and you deserve a good return on that investment. I believe I bring a strong set of skills, range of experience, and a willingness to work for the betterment of a community which has been very good to me. By electing me to the chamber, ratepayers, both residential and commercial, will have a representative who works in their interests at all times. There are a number of areas in which I think Golan Council can do better. This is the fastest growing region in South Australia with many challenges, but it also offers the opportunity to build a strong, resilient and successful community for all.
Thank you, Louise Drummond. Mick Lorna.
I would like to start first off for the record. I was the guy that left his phone on, so that's all on me. Greetings, fellow residents of Golan. I stand here as a candidate to serve the community, the Golan community. If elected, you'll find me to be a stand-up guy that will call it how I see it and more how the community that engages with me sees it. I'm not political. I have no allegiances to any fractions, nor am I here just to toe the line. I'm definitely not a yes man. I'll ask the hard questions and expect the answers. I do not hold any specific agenda, but to review the community submissions and assist in the decision-making process that benefits Golan. If you're after more of an insight that what I hold strong and dearly to me, it is mental health and the lack of available resources available in our community. This is not just an issue for the councils, but is a government at the highest level. I strongly support businesses, community and sporting groups with effective allocation of council land, greater assistance with fundings and grant applications. Responsible council expenditure. There seems to be a bit of a thing going on here about that, which a lot of people have noticed. We spend way too much money has been spent on projects that are insufficient, not viable, or just plain failures. Effective resource management. It's quite disturbing to walk around the parklands and along the tracks and see the amount of rubbish that's getting dumped, like lots of rubbish. We need to make more use of the availability. I messed myself up, but forgive me there. I'll move on. As a chosen representative, you find me a raw, down-to-earth person who believes the council needs to be and is capable of doing more. This council needs to be held accountable. I would call BS. When I hear it, I'm pretty sure I'll be pulled up on my colourful language at times. But that is me. I am Mick and I stand for Golan.
Thank you, Mick Lorna. Brent Dawnford.
Bring that down a little bit. Not as much as I thought it would be. Hi all, and thanks for coming and caring enough to come out and be a part of this tonight. I did have a different presentation set out, but I changed it just before leaving home. I felt this was more important that's about to follow. So I'm going to do a lot of reading, long story short. So as my bio says, and as people that know me know that I would like a more vibrant town. A town is with its own identity.
a town not quickly becoming a suburb a long way from the city. A town that is a destination, not a gateway to somewhere else. I feel we all want a town to be, we all want one to be proud of. A town where people want to visit. But what is more important than what I want as an individual is a council of 10 people prepared to achieve what the community wants and needs. A group of 10 people working cohesively. A group of 10 people that are results driven, that don't want to dance around important issues. A group of 10 people that are truly the voice of the community. A group of 10 people that are prepared to put egos aside and work selflessly at achieving a better town for us all. Along this journey, I've met a lot of people, a lot of local people that love this town and would love to see it thrive. We must work in collaboration with these groups. I'm not afraid of hard work and I'm not afraid of a challenge. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Brent Dawnford. Angus Milliken.
I'll leave it there. So hi, my name's Angus. I've been a long-term Gawler resident as young as I am. So I moved here basically straight out of the hospital at my time of birth. So I've been here roughly 27 years now. I went to school in Gawler. I needless to say, grew up in Gawler and have been active in Gawler throughout those years. I started my political journey with council on the Youth Advisory Committee back in 2014, 2015, when I was introduced to the committee by Cody Davies. I have been active in many community roles through the Youth Advisory Committee, not least of which standing on the Climate Emergency Action Plan Working Group for several years, helping to see that put into fruition. I also stood on the Gawler Civic Centre Opening Working Group, which was the small street party and one of the few street parties we've had in the past decade or so. I was also very active in planning the Civic Centre's opening. Sorry, not opening, the design and layout of the Civic Centre, as were the Youth Advisory Committee. We were approached on several matters, not least of which the location of the youth space. I was one of the few individuals that was very keen on moving the youth space out of the basement where it was going to be and into the place where it was. I'm standing for council today because I feel like my voice can have impact. I have strong listening capabilities and I'm more than happy to listen to any issue and bring that up. Through the Youth Advisory Committee, I've helped out at multiple workshops where we have been taking people's advice on to shape the town for the youth of Gawler, and I can plan to do that still. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus Milliken. Tom Modra.
Well, thanks everyone for coming tonight. It's good to see everyone here. I've written all this down because I'll forget after otherwise. I've lived in Gawler all my life and I often wonder why many worthwhile projects have become the subject of lengthy delays, divisions during the past years, sometimes requiring expensive legal actions. Many local and new businesses face long delays and red tape when trying to develop and expand. I believe a dedicated Town of Gawler officer would help that situation. The Town of Gawler infrastructure should continue to be developed and preserve and promote the unique heritage of our colonial history together with the best and modern services and civic amenities, and include enhancing the entrances into our town to make them more welcoming. I would also like to improve the facilities of our sporting clubs. For example, the provision of women's change rooms to increase the ability for young women to participate in active sport. I'm aware of the many delays to locate a suitable site for the Gawler Veterans Car Club. This club for many years has been the organiser of the highly successful Gawler Swap Meet, which has been a substantial donor to many local social and sport clubs and become a popular tourist event on the South Australian calendar. I also believe that the town of Gawler financial management must improve in order to limit and halt rate rises. The town of Gawler should focus only on local government matters and adhere to the Local Government Act at all times. I have always been interested in the future of Gawler. However, my previous employment prevented me from doing so. Now that I'm retired, I am able to commit the necessary time to become an effective councillor. And I've done it under time. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom Modra. Paul Kosh.
Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight I actually want to just talk about what I believe makes an effective elected member. First of all, elected members have to think strategically. For example, when we're dealing with growth, it's a really big issue. So Gawler is facing a lot of change as growth is quite rapid. This can be both positive and negative, but we need to strive to maintain the character and values that define our town as it grows. I've put a lot of effort into weighing up the competing interests, because that's what you need to do. You need to be strategic and weigh up the different interests. At times, this can be personally challenging, so it's not an easy gig. When I make decisions, they are balanced and in the best interest of the whole community. It can be very easy to make populist decisions, but I think they're bad decisions. The next is we need to be elected members need to make decisions that are financially responsible. One of the most common issues raised to me is about the rates. When council sets the budget, they must have a long-term view. A single decision that council can make can have long-term ramifications and push up debt and cause rates to rise. I strive for to be financially responsible in decision-making and look for the long term. And finally, I think the commitment to put in the work. I've actually found that it takes between 2 to 3 days a week to fully deal with all the requirements of council. This includes the mountains of reading, responding to community members' concerns, etc. It's also important to represent the community in other forums. I've been a member on many different boards and have fully engaged with council committees. Without putting in the time and effort, it would be very difficult to truly fulfil the role. Also, it is important that all councillors treat each other with respect. If not, it can be very difficult. So I do have the runs on the board. I know what is required, and I have a wealth of knowledge and experience to offer the community to continue on as an elected member. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul Kosh. Helene Carmody.
I might be the shortest one here. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. To represent you as a councillor, we need not only voices for the youth, businesses, financials and so on, we also need voices who will advocate for the everyday residents that live here. I would love to be one of the voices to represent residents living here, as I too am a resident who has lived here all of my life. My family settled here when Gawler was first established and committed themselves to being involved in this town. I too would love to be involved where my passion lies with wanting to maintain heritage aspects while also revitalising and rejuvenating neglected areas. If elected, I believe a common sense approach is vital with consultation and consideration for all residents, and this is what I will strive to achieve. I believe that getting back to basics of what a council is meant to be here for is crucial and includes maintaining our roads, parks, etc. regularly. And when the basics are done right, that is when we can work towards improving our town further. At the moment, it has been expressed by many about the growing traffic problems and lack of parking, which needs to be addressed and fixed. I'd love to be part of a team who are refreshed, open to new ideas, and keen to improve this town, where listening to suggestions, ideas from the community would be a sensible thing to do. Promoting our town is needed, where once the basics are sorted, I believe strongly that this can and will be done with the right elected members who are here for you first. Ultimately though, the choice is yours, where all I really want is to have a better Gawler that doesn't continue to lose its original country town elements and identity. Thank you.
Thank you, Helene Carmody. Shane Bailey.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate the opportunity to address you. My name's Shane Bailey. I'm the 12th name on your list. If you want to whack a one in now, save time. For more than 20 years, I've worked 6 days a week in our retail business on Murray Street, B Music. Before that, I worked for others here, going back more than 30 years. In that time, I've learned a lot about what this community wants and what it needs and what it doesn't think that it's getting. Young and old, universally, there exists a wonder about what is happening with rates and where do they go? Why do they keep going up year in, year out without any appreciable rise in service? They're right to question why rates continually increase. If service levels improved, they might be more comfortable with it. But when a ratepayer sees wasteful project after wasteful project, and in their eyes, a lack of accountability and transparency, they have a right to be frustrated. They have a right to be apathetic even, but they also have a right to demand better of their elected body. And at this election, that's what they'll be doing, I hope, in record numbers. I'm not talking about rates for the sake of it. I've pursued this current council over waste, and many hundreds of thousands of dollars was wasted, not to mention the many opportunities that were lost along with it. Council would like to blame someone else, but the reality is the responsibility lies with council. Just as when you and I spend money, it's our responsibility. But our income isn't guaranteed. We don't have a customer who is forced, whether they like it or not, to pay for our follies. Things aren't going to be very easy for the next little while, and we need a council who understands implicitly the value of every single dollar. This is not a time to forget the very recent past and the very tough lessons that it has taught us. Please, when you vote, vote for common sense, vote for clarity, vote for those who have an understanding that every wasted dollar saved is a dollar that can go back into the community. Ideas and plans you'll hear about tonight, some will be great ideas, but they'll all need money, and it's your money and it deserves to be treated with respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane Bailey. Brian Samble.
Thank you, Anne. And also thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to speak about why I would like you to re-elect me for another term. And wow, you know, 23 candidates and 4 for mayor. Fantastic. I'll tell you to you all, congratulations and thank you for putting your hand up. We need to change. We certainly do. There's been a number of things that have been actually said tonight, but there's so many just quick things in 2 minutes. It's hard for me because I talk too much, but to do with traffic, I think we all know that traffic's a nightmare. We've got government buses running around our town with no one in them. I can tell you the drivers are really lonely. Try them sometimes, please, because it really does work for you. We've got so many other things that are happening. There's a lot of talk about the point of taking over other areas and so forth. I'm totally against that. We need to fix up what we've got. 24,950 people live in this town. The Homemakers, the Golan Green Centre is the largest shopping centre outside of Adelaide. The sports centre in the street sells more sporting equipment than any other town outside South Australia. And I could go on and on and on. Anytime you want to, go into the administration centre and pick up one of these, Golan Invest, and read what it's got. This town is fantastic. Let's fix up what we've got, because boundaries are not, we're just going to have to spend. I think the other thing is that I want to listen to every one of you. I'm sure all the other candidates will want that too, because our sporting clubs and all of our institutions in our town here, whether it's the service clubs, whether it's the men's shed or whoever else, they're all part of a beautiful community. Thank you. Golan is the best of town and country.
Thank you, Brian Samble. Ethan White.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Ethan White, and nominating for council would allow me the opportunity to serve a community that has given so much to me personally and professionally. In consultation with ratepayers, I will listen and deliver upon the needs of our community. I love Gawler. Having lived in Gawler my whole life, I'm now involved in a number of different community organisations while I study at the University of South Australia and also work part-time at Xavier College, which is where I went to high school. I see growth for Gawler in a few key areas. First of all, tourism. I believe that by developing infrastructure, we can attract more visitors and encourage people travelling through Gawler to stop and stay within the town, providing an economic boost to our businesses. Secondly, the youth of Gawler. I believe we can further develop council-led programs during school holidays and after-school activities for our young people, as well as upgrading, developing and maintaining our play spaces. And thirdly, our community organisations. I believe that volunteer-led organisations such as our sporting clubs, our community groups, as well as small business really are the backbone of Gawler. So therefore, council should be doing everything it can financially and logistically to support these organisations. Now, while I'm passionate about a few of these key areas, I genuinely want to listen to all community members of Gawler, acting upon what is important to you and then delivering. It would be an honour to serve you as your councillor, and I hope that I have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan White. Karen Brunt.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Karen Brunt, and I'm standing for council elections for the first time. I'm a long-term resident of the Hillier area, and my family have been part of the Gawler community for the last 30 years. I've had a good career in the business world, but I've always had a keen interest in social and environmental issues, which has led me to standing for council today. If elected, I would like to build on the work council has already done and be part of shaping the direction Gawler is headed in for the future. But before we can move forward, we do have to address some items that are still a concern to residents, such as roads, footpaths, parking, especially around town. While on the campaign trail, these items have been raised by concerned residents to me over and over. As far as I'm concerned, these are everyday items for council and will need to work on the processes to make these activities a given and not something that residents should have to worry about. I'll work with state government on important issues like traffic, health, housing, and services for the young people. As a resident of the Southern Boundary Lands area, I have attended countless meetings that have resulted in multiple studies at huge ratepayer expense. And as yet, after more than 10 years of meetings and studies, no reasonable solutions have been offered to the residents. If I'm elected, I intend to consult with the residents on the issues that do concern them and make sure the residents' voices are heard. I'll do my best to support a consultative council that takes care of the basics for residents as a minimum, that works on a shared vision for the future and create an environment that attracts business and investment to our region so that residents can work and live in Gawler. Local government is the first level of representation for our community, and the opportunity to serve our community is an honour, but also a responsibility that I don't take lightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen Brunt. Colin Wardrop.
Good evening, everyone. I'm probably the youngest member of the Gawler community. I moved here 4 years ago from Melbourne or country Victoria to be with my children that are growing up. In that 4 years, I've retired. I got involved with the RSL as an advocate for veterans and their families. I got involved also with a men's group called Men Building Connections to help men have a conversation with other like-minded men, but also giving themselves the ability to spread their wings. I'm also involved with South Gawler Football Club, particularly as the director of women's football, which is a passion of mine. And as part of that, one of the things that I found is inadequate in the town of Gawler is the lack of facilities for women's sport, i.e. AFLW. If you go step outside of Gawler, you go to Anguston, Uriutpur or Tanunda, it's happening. Their councils spend that money because they know the value of what women's sport is in this country. The issues I also have is about developing infrastructure programs for small business. That is, if you walk down Murray Street, there are a number of empty businesses. One of the things that I would like to see is a startup from the council to give maybe some rebates to these businesses for the next 3 years. Ensuring council has a greater level of engagement with state and federal agencies in regard to homelessness. Also, looking at the legal engagement and mediation. We spend a lot of money on sorting out piffy issues that could have been resolved by mediation. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin Wardrop. Kelly Wright.
Good evening, I'm Kelly Wright, and I'd like to start with something of a light humour. That is, if you've received a wonky candidate card or flyer in the mail, I'm sorry. I'm extremely family orientated and my kids didn't want to use the guillotine, use the scissors, and it was all hands on deck. They weren't hands on deck for the delivery though. For those who know me, who don't know me, they say, why are you running for council? Those who already know me say, I hope you get in, Kelly, we need a voice like you. The reason why I believe I would make a great councillor for the town of Gawler is because I'm passionate, transparent, and I'm very direct. I'll argue for the interest of others and not just to please myself. I'm not afraid to speak up for those who are afraid to, don't know how to, and I'm also not afraid to ask why. I think as ratepayers, we all like fancy things. I like fancy things, but through my life, I've learned to ask these questions. Is it necessary and is it important? From speaking to people around Gawler, whether strangers, friends, or families, there's a common goal of mindness, which is humble to know that we are all living here in the Gawler area for the same reasons. What's important to me is seeing people being able to move freely around Gawler, traffic or walking, have somewhere to take kids, youth, vulnerable, disabled, that is safe, sun smart, road and footpath friendly. People of the community here told me that as a ratepayer, they want to see and leave a legacy to continue to grow and thrive Gawler as they see it. As a mother of 3 children, I thought, wow, that's what I want to help with. I'd like to see the streets lined with happiness, helping mental health, green foliage. To me, this means suitable street trees, not trees where trucks need to navigate unsafely on the roads. You may feel that you are only one vote, but one person can actually change the life of many. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly Wright. Jim Valongo.
Hello, I'm Jim Valongo, small business owner in Gawler for a long time, actually born in Gawler, just like some of these younger people here. What I want to see in Gawler is we've been through the last 3 years with this pandemic, so it's been pretty unpredictable, so we all know that. I want to be here to see the council save money for ratepayers. I want to see the Eastern or Shimmer, whatever they call it, road go to 70 to 80 kilometres an hour, not 50. I want to see all the roads in Gawler that are dangerous. We look at them very seriously because some are very dangerous. I like to think that all the old buildings in Gawler, we like to keep them and keep the heritage going and keep the old and put the new with it. And I like to see Gawler flourish with that. I like to see it, it's not just 2 years down the track. I want to see it like in 30 or 40 years down the track. I want to help. I'm not sure about boundary reform yet. I'm not convinced yet. I'm in 2 frames of mind about it. So I'm not sure about that. I like people to talk to me about boundary reform if that's possible. And I also want to see the rural areas, there's a voice there and I want to be a voice for them. basically, that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Jim Valongo. Sam Shetler.
Hi, I've only got 2 minutes, so I'll just tell you who I am and what I do. I think that will speak to what I'll be like on council. So I'm a foster father, teacher, mentor at Flow Psychology, and a founding member of the Anti-Poverty Network, SA, which has been around for about 10 years. So yesterday I spent my time putting together a prototype borrow bag that includes a skateboard, skateboard magazine, skateboard tool, and stickers that I hope the library will take up and eventually have a public toy library and tool library. I've been in discussion about that for a long time. The day before that, I was at Backton Street Playground, an often neglected part of the council area, trying to fix a gate on the playground area that doesn't have a child safety latch and bangs very loud at nighttime for everyone who lives around there, which is quite painful. I didn't successfully fix it, but hopefully I came up with a solution that will work soon. Over the weekend, I was at Bunnings for 8 hours on Saturday, holding a stall to increase voting participation in this election for all candidates here. On Sunday, I spent 3.5 hours at the Lion Market doing the same stall about democracy because it's fundamental to this council functioning. Less than 30% voted in the last election, and so on and so on. I don't have much time, but my main focus, I think, is actually having a full community. Low-income residents need to be part of our community, and I think that is the unique focus that I can bring to this council, and I have successfully helped pass a few motions in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam Shetler. And finally, Nathan Shanks.
Couple of tall ones here tonight. Good evening. My name is Nathan Shanks. I'm a 33-year-old husband of a hardworking nurse, a father of 2 beautiful young girls, and I work full-time as a construction project manager for a local building company. Tonight, I will refer back briefly to 25-year-old me, the tradie that didn't understand the role of local government played in his everyday life. And I was too busy running his own business, getting married, finishing building his house in Williston, and trying to afford to live to understand. This story may sound familiar to some in the room. Either way, local government was so far off my radar, I'm amazed how I'm here tonight seeking your support to run for my 2nd term on council and how much more I understand. What I've learned on council the last 4 years has been life-altering. What I've come to realise is, as a Gawler ratepayer, Gawler Council is our company. So as long as we are a council ratepayer, we are the shareholders of our company by default. Now it's time that we, the shareholders, vote in our new board of directors. Since I was elected in 2018 with 0 local government experience, I have consistently brought to the chamber a logical tradie mind, some business experience, and the willingness to do the work. This is evident within the 30+ motions I've moved in the chamber, chasing positive community outcomes. I am honoured to have been elected to be your voice for us all hardworking people for the last 4 years. I've done my apprenticeship and have hopefully proven myself as your elected member that likes to get things done for his community above all else. So in closing, I would like to remind you all to cast your vote for the candidate that represents your Gawler, because this is your company and the chance to have a voice is right now. If this person is still me, then I thank you for the support once again. But if not, please use your vote wisely because our decision dictates the direction our company takes.
Thank you, Nathan Shanks. And thank you to all the candidates for being so kind and sticking to time and letting me march some of you off the stage. And thank you very much for waiting patiently in the audience. We've got until 9 p.m. tonight, so we've got about an hour up our sleeve to take questions from the floor. As I mentioned before, you can address your questions directly to a particular candidate, or you can pop your question out there and I'll seek responses from a few candidates for each question. We've got, I think, Sarah out with a roving mic. Yeah. Would anyone like to start off the questions? Sarah, we've got one at the front here, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. My question is for Mr. John Bolton, and it's in two parts. John, referring to a quote you posted on Facebook, referencing last Saturday's Advertiser article on young adults standing for council, your Facebook quote was, while car insurance companies charge them double because they more often crash things while driving, the advertiser thinks children should decide how to spend ratepayers' money. My question is, do your comments imply that if elected mayor, that you will not listen to the voice of Gawler residents under the age of 25 years? And does this mean that you will not acknowledge or support any viewpoints of elected councillors if they are under the age of 25 years? Michael. Michael White, 48 Gawler Terrace, Gawler South.
Thank you, Michael. John, you're invited to respond to that question. Thank you. Do we have another question from the floor? There's one right at the back, please, Sarah. Oh, thank you. Hold on. I'm very happy for you to respond if you like. Henry, can we get a mic for Isaac, please?
Thank you. And thank you for the question. I think even that post was aimed at Ethan and myself. I thought I should respond and talk a little bit about myself. In terms of the youth council, we did some work on there with public transport, and we got about 140 responses to a survey we did. Council that same year got about 18 to their budget consultation. So glad to see that the youth council is doing a lot better job than the current council. But in terms of being fiscally responsible, I did want to talk about that for a minute. There was a council meeting recently, which John spoke at, on the Climate Emergency Action Plan. Now,
Isaac, I will request you to keep your answer short, because we will have a lot to get through today. Thank
During
you.
that meeting, that plan does actually save money. It doesn't matter whether you believe in climate change or not. Unfortunately, John, like you said, even though you may be feel personally offended by that, the balance sheet doesn't care about your ideology, and it doesn't care about your feelings. On my financial credentials, if you'd like to talk about that, I chair the board of a $2.5 million organisation, and I also sit on the board of a $1.8 billion organisation, which is the University of South Australia. I would invite you to go and have a look at that record and say which other councillor here has brought that kind of experience, and not base it on my age, but base it on my actual experience.
Thank you, Isaac.
Thank you.
Question up the back. Thank you.
Hello, yes. My name's Julian Midwinter. I live in Edith Street in Gawler East. My question is for Mayor Redmond. My question is, why do you think we should vote you back in for another term when it seems overwhelming that one of the huge problems that Gawler is facing is the choking traffic that we are experiencing. And Gola Council was presented by the Department of Infrastructure a very comprehensive report in 2016, which detailed all of the problems that Gola was facing and that it was going to be facing by about 2025. And we are experiencing all of those
I request you
problems now.
move to a question. Thank you.
The question is, if there were a list of issues that or things that should have been done to address that problem, which were fully costed by the DIT at $16 million, why did the Gola Council decide to actually spend $12.75 million on this beautiful town hall, which didn't do anything to address the problems of Gola?
Thank you. Mayor Redmond, you're invited to respond.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Ministerial DPAs happened in Springwood in 2010. That was against the will of the Gola community. That's got a really large development. We will soon have Concordia come on board, which will double Gola's population, around 20,000 people, 700 odd hectares. Once Concordia comes on board, that there were a number of reports from 2010 up through to current day that looked at structure plans from the department in regard to growth. A critical piece of infrastructure that is required is a road from the Barossa Valley Highway through to Sturt Highway through Concordia. That is critical to easing some of the traffic that Gola will have. Gola will continue to grow. We have the Gola East Link Road, and I take on board the comments around the speed limit. There's a reason for that. We did apply to the state government and they said no. They apply speed limits, not us. So I think that traffic will always be busy, but there's also an opportunity to do integrative a transport plan using walking and cycling, and really starting to challenge the norm around people driving one child to school at peak hour and gridlocking the town. We are a very walkable town, and there is an opportunity to do a much better walking and cycling plan, and that's called, I'm reliably informed, an integrative transport plan that slowly gets people out of their cars. Now, I appreciate we're 42 k's from the city, and some of us, I'm one of them. I've worked outside of the town for many years. I work at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I continue to work there, and you can't get public transport in a timely way for me to get to work at 7:30 in the morning. And there's many people in Gola who work shift work. And so there's a real opportunity to improve our public transport. Brian Samble, I think, said—
Mayor Redmond, I'll ask you to wind your response up.
Thank you. So there's lots of opportunities to improve our traffic infrastructure, but it also includes developers paying because they get a big uplift from their developments. So there's a role not just for the ratepayer, there's a role for a whole range of people to influence how we manage our traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. One question at the front here, please.
Thank you. Dean Allen, co-owner of Cartridge World in the main street of Gola. My question is for Ethan, and in particular, after Mayor Redmond just made that comment, there is a real concern as business owners in the main street of Gola of it not being a destination point. You made the comment before, Ethan, about one of your goals would be to make Gola a destination point. What terrifies me, particularly after the comments from Mayor Redmond, is if we're building roads to bypass Gola, what can we do in Gawler to make them go, well, it's just a place there, we don't have to get stuck in the traffic. What do we do to then go, instead of them driving through to the Barossa or driving through to the Riverland or driving through to wherever, let's make Gawler a place where we stop for whatever reason. You in your speech, Ethan, you made the comment about having ideas of Gawler becoming a destination point. Can you give us some idea on those ideas, please?
Thank you.
Yes, of course. No, fantastic. Thank you for the question. For me, I think the first step is ensuring that council provides the infrastructure for people to stop, not only visiting, but for residents of Gawler as well. Walking up and down the main street the other weekend, I think every business owner I spoke to spoke about the parking in Gawler. It's not great as it is. And if we are trying to attract more visitors, we need to put in the infrastructure to allow them to stop. For me, that would be building and developing a car park that would be suitable for recreational vehicles to stop at short term within Gawler. So at the moment, we get a lot of travellers that pass through Gawler on their way out to the Barossa or towards the northern areas of our state. If we can, I guess, cash in on those people who might be stopping for lunch or stopping to spend a few hours walking around our central business district, I think that is where the opportunity lies to get people in to stop. But we can't do that unless we actually have the adequate infrastructure in place to invite people to come in and stop. So the first part, I guess, to your question is, the first step is we need to actually build the facilities to get people to stop. Talking about a destination and what actually will allow people to stop, I think that will eventually grow in time. However, at the moment, Gawler is a beautiful place. We are already a natural attraction. We're a reasonable distance from the city, and I don't see why Gawler can't become a great place, not only as a stopover, but as a day trip, as an overnight stay, as longer term holidays. But the first step for me that I see is we need to be ensuring that our parking infrastructure is in place first to allow visitors, but also in time that will benefit the community to ensure that we've actually got the areas that people can park in close proximity and then spend their time in Gawler. That would be the first step for me.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thanks.
Another question, please. I can take one more response. Yes. Go ahead and mark here, please.
RV friendly, there's 4 sites in Gawler, which are close to the CBD. The RVs that are self-contained are bypassing Gawler because they're the people that don't want to go into the caravan parks. They average spend $160 per head when they come. They go to our shops, they get a haircut, they go to the cafes. That's number 1. I had an article in the Bunyip about a park and ride on the footprint of the car park at Gawler Central because we're being swamped with people coming in, clogging up the streets because they're coming in to use the electric railway lines. As I walked and spoke to businesses, and I'm sorry I didn't pop into yours, but I've spoken to a whole load of them, they also gave me some other brilliant ideas. They said, that's a great idea, but we need a central car park. And they said they gave up 2 options. One is behind the NAB, if we had a central car park in that area there, multi-story, maybe even goes to the post office, takes over the post office, puts the post office back underneath, puts some apartments on the top, and puts a central CBD car park. And the other was to negotiate with Aldi, as we're meant to do as a council, and say, if Aldi, if you're coming to that spot, let's have an underground car park in the centre of town like we've got at Woolies. If we do that sort of parking in the central CBD, we encourage people to be able to come in and use the CBD and stay. So 2 answers there. RV friendly, it's a cherry for picking. It costs us nothing. And they'll come and they'll spend. And there's 600,000 of them on the road at any one time. And their network says, bypass Gawler because you're not friendly because we can't park.
Thank
and
you,
then
Ian.
put a CBD car park to help businesses like yours.
Thank you. Another question, please.
Oh, hi, sorry, my name is Michelle. My question's for John Bolton. I'm just wondering, as mayor, you'd like to be voted in to represent Gawler, yet you struggle to recognise that at the beginning of meetings, etc., when we acknowledge that we're originally on Kaurna land. Okay. Is that better? Okay, my question to you is, you're asking us to vote you in as mayor as a representative of the Gawler community. However, you mentioned in your speech that you didn't probably wording this wrong, but you don't want to recognise at the beginning of meetings, etc., the acknowledgement that we are originally on Kaurna land, which I guess is a sign of respect to our community and particularly our Indigenous people.
Thank you, Michelle. John.
What I would have instead of a divisive thing which only recognises one of the races that contributes to Australia, I would welcome people to Australia, to our First Nation. 1901 is when the First Nation was created. My ancestors were also hunter-gatherers.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We will let John finish. John.
When my ancestors were hunter-gatherers, we weren't nations, and they're not nations now either. Australia's First Nation was 1901, and I welcome everybody here to my nation if you're not Australian.
Thank you for that response. Could I get another question, please?
Thank you. I'm not sure if this is allowable or not because I want to address everyone. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I can go with that.
Would you like to stand up so everyone can see you? Those in the back row, if you're comfortable.
I sort of disappear into
Thank you.
Even standing up, it's hard to see
Thank
me.
you.
I'm addressing everyone with this question. Boundary reform is a vexed question, not just for council, but for those of us who live here. And it raises all sorts of, raises eyebrows, people roll their eyes, people shrug, people tear their hair out, all sorts of things are happening. If you were elected, use a show of hands so that I can see if you would support proceeding with boundary reform. I know some of you are in two minds, but yeah.
The candidates are very welcome to participate in this poll.
All of you.
I'm sure there's a lot of clarifying comments, but perhaps we'll turn it into a question. Would you like to address a question? Then I'm very happy to take perhaps 3 responses from the candidates.
Okay. Who would support the proceeding with boundary reform?
Can I invite 3 candidates to respond to supporting boundary reform? Shane? Yeah, could you take the microphone, please, so we can all hear you?
Thank you so much for the question. Proceeding with boundary reform implies that the whole package is going to be something that each councillor would follow, but you have Hewitt, Concordia, the administrative staff of Playford, up here. The administrative stuff is a no-brainer because both councils are for it. Concordia is a greenfield that hasn't been developed. Hewitt is an established area. And when it comes to the investigation, the cost of the investigation, the lion's share will be Hewitt. When it comes to maintaining the new area, the lion's share will be Hewitt, which is ageing infrastructure, is now going to start costing money. The question that doesn't get answered is that Light's just not going to hand over Hewitt if the government says you can have it. There's a community centre, there's all these assets, playgrounds, they're paying for those, so then Gawler has to pay for them. So you have to borrow money to buy those assets. Now, rate income is a non-profit exercise. You get as much rates from the ratepayer as it costs to service the ratepayer, but then you get a loan. How do you service the loan? Every ratepayer has to pay more money to service the loan to pick up an area that's ageing infrastructure. So the question isn't as simple as, do you support ongoing boundary reform? I support the administrative stuff. Concordia is a different argument. It'd be very nice to be able to be involved in that whole planning from day one. Hewitt is a whole separate issue and a very expensive one. Thanks very much for the question.
Thank you very much. I think Paul has the microphone to respond.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Just stand where you are. Thank you, Paul. That's fine.
Boundary reform has been something that's been going on for probably 30 years. When I talk to people in Gawler, it's one of the most common things people say. They say, why isn't, say, Hewitt part of Gawler? When I talk about Concordia, they say, why isn't Concordia part of Gawler? They can see the inequities around having a population that close to Gawler, using, that close to our council. The whole argument gets down to a thing called community of interest. So you have to go to Hewitt and you say to people in Hewitt, where do you go and play footy? Very few play in Kapunda. They all probably use the Gola sporting clubs. Where do you shop? Where do you go to church? Where do you socialise? They will all say, majority will say, in Gola. So their community of interest is Gola. For Concordia, it will be exactly the same. They will use Gola because that will be their community. Their community will not be Tanunda, it won't be Nuruyupta, it will be Gola. So the whole issue revolves around that community of interest. We need to move on with that. We need to do the investigations, and we need to have the best outcome for Gola, because otherwise we'll have Gola ratepayers continually paying for upgrades of our sporting facilities. Everyone's talking about upgrading them, but a lot of the people that are using them aren't Gola residents. Now that's a real issue.
Thank you, Paul. One more response, Cody.
Yeah, look, I'm in support of boundary reform. I think the main question to ask when you're looking at the boundary reform question is, what's the cost of failing to do it? Because, we're talking about the main street, we're talking about all these issues. What happens when a new population the size of Gola, 10,000 houses, 25,000 residents, moves in? I think the closest houses in Concordia are something like 800 meters away from Gola East, a lot more than 800 meters away from Newry. So we're going to have a unified approach to how do we do our planning for the next 20 years? How are we going to make it so that we're not just cut off, so our main street isn't cut off, because that's what's at stake here. If development continues past Gola and around Gola, and Gola doesn't get a say in it, that has effects financially, it has effects on our culture. In 20 or 30 years, if half of Gola's population is run by the Barossa Council, and then there's a bit run by the Light Council, how are we going to make it so that we can maintain our culture as the development grows? How are we going to make it so that we can have a unified community, like the Gola community, rather than just, this is a commuter town. This is just a commuter suburb. People live, work, play in Adelaide, and they come home to sleep in Gola.
Thanks, Cody. Another question from the floor. We've got one from the gentleman just in the middle. Thank you.
Just to comment on the boundaries, it's very good for the council to say we've got a plan for this future, but what if District Council of Barossa, District Council of Light, and the state government says, no, we don't agree with it, end of story?
I'm happy to take a response. Ian?
In the late 90s, the state government organised boundary reform. Peter Malinauskas is talking about boundary reform. I don't mind boundary reform if the government does it, because the government pays for it. Under this system, you've got a council trying to grab land off two other councils, and those councils hate us for it. In the city, these people keep talking about people come across the boundary. In the CBD, there is a road, and on that side, it's Marion, and on that side, it's another council. That is how it works. People live on the other sides. This will cost us $500,000 down the toilet. We already know we're going to lose it. What they don't tell you about Concordia is that massive 20,000, that is a city on its own. It includes the extension of the railway line into Concordia in their vision. It includes a link road that goes across onto the Northern Connector. There will not be the traffic coming in. It's a self-contained with universities, shops, and housing precincts. And the other thing these people keep banging on about, the reason we're a regional centre with 25,000, we service 85,000 and our businesses thrive. I go to Henley Square. I don't have to get a permit to go there. My family lives in that area. I spend money in that area. You cross boundaries and you do it all the time. This nonsense about taking over, the moment you do that, as you're seeing already, they're growing out to Roseworthy. You'll build on the other side of it.
Thank you, Ian.
Let's get on and deal with our own area and not waste $500,000 or $600,000 on a folly that will fail.
Thank you, Ian.
If I can just address your question, Gavin, the Boundaries Commission does the investigations. The council hands it over to the Boundaries Commission. There's guidelines. Other councils, the legislation was changed a few years ago where it used to be that you had to get approval from all councils before you progressed. They changed the legislation because not one boundary reform proposal was put up because no one could agree. So they changed the legislation. So we put up a proposal. The Boundaries Commission is currently looking at that proposal. They are the ones in charge and they make a recommendation to the minister. It is taken out of council's hand. Certainly, council pays for those investigations. That is the kicker. So I know that the state government is doing amalgamations with Grant and Mount Gambier, but there's a lot of disquiet down there because no one was consulted. No one.
Thank you.
So I think that boundary reform is something that is critical for our future.
Thank you, Mayor Redmond. And I'm happy to take one more response. I think Nathan wanted to speak to this issue as well.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Boundary reform has been a very complex issue that I've been involved with in the chamber. Firstly, I'm not for the way we've gone about it. I think we're about $500,000 deep to get to the stage we're in right now. And if we had a 42 square kilometres that I could hand on heart say we're finished and we're proud of, then maybe I'd facilitate the conversation. But one point I just wanted to make is we've had suburbs come online in our 42 square kilometres. Ask yourself what has happened to your rates since that population growth. Mine have gone up. If we're talking about taking over another population, what happens to our rates then? We have so many different questions that have been left unanswered with this, and yet we are still putting money into it, yours and my money. Community isn't defined by who we pay our rates to. It's defined by our sporting clubs and the like. And if we want to start taking over the players that support those clubs and volunteer in those areas, then we're never ending on what we need to take over in this state. So let's get our 42 square kilometres right first, and then think about how we move forward, while also engaging with our neighbours constructively to ensure that the developments on our doorstep are done mutually beneficial to our community, our region.
Thank you, Nathan. Should we move to a different topic now? No, thank you. No, thank you. Sorry, sir. No, thank you. If you could pass the mic. Sorry, no, I'm sorry. We don't have time for back and forth. You're most welcome to follow up with one of the candidates afterwards. There's a lady down the back who has a question, the green. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Chantal and we're from Evanston. I think I'm about third generation Gawler. So my question is, I was just thinking about the Concordia discussion and the road to the highway discussion. I'm wondering if the consideration for parking reform and fixes in Gawler is pending on this development acquisition. And does the current Gawler Council have any plans in place to start working on these traffic issues now, or are they all contingent on bigger and better development processes that are happening probably 5, 10, 15 plus years down the track?
Thank you for the question, Chantal. I'd encourage, if we haven't heard from any members yet, that we, or any candidates, that we hear from them for a response.
Thanks, Chantal, for the question. We do have transport management plans, and I think we're currently reviewing that plan that's up for review. That's a town centre transport management plan. We've also done Williston transport management plans. We've done a Gawler South transport management plans. But the key transport plan that takes us through Gawler is critical. It also incorporates parking. It incorporates future planning for car parks, for key roads, and how they function. So it is important to contribute to those plans. They always go out for public consultation, and I think that it's really important, given our traffic congestion at times, how we manage that. But I'd still like to talk, don't forget about walking and cycling, because you get people out of cars, they actually go into a shop and shop. They can't shop while they're driving in a car. So it's really important that we make our town walkable and cyclable as well.
Thank you for that response. Another question, please. Yes, at the back, thank you. Sorry, yeah.
Hi, my name's Jenny Douglas. I live in Gawler East. I'm just interested in a bit more of a social justice perspective, and it's been obvious to me that we've got an increasing homelessness issue in our community, and I'd love to hear a take on people's perspectives around managing and addressing that, please.
Would anyone like to take that question? Yes, thank you. Do you want to stand up so everyone can see you hiding in the back? Thank you.
Hello, hello. As I said in my brief 2 minutes, is that for the last decade, I've been working with the Anti-Poverty Network. I helped found it. And really, to answer your question, is that what's missing from a lot of the efforts to solve the problem of homelessness and poverty, no matter how well-intentioned, is that the folks who are directly impacted are excluded from the decision-making process. And therefore, you don't ever get at the root of the problem. And unfortunately, a lot of the efforts that I've seen in town have continued that pattern. And I've spoke to this effect at the community public forums at the beginning of council meetings. And just to explain so you understand, the Anti-Poverty Network is a group run by low-income people who are on Centrelink or the DSP or in public housing or in whatnot. And it's so important that if we're going to have a community, we can't be having a tent propped up near Gala Green, which you might have seen for a couple of weeks. Everyone just drove by, they lived there, and then it disappeared. What happened to that person? I dropped my card there so they could contact me. I never got a response. And so when folks say, just focus on roads and rates and such, what you're saying is, let's leave part of our community behind. And so it's important that we don't do that, and that folks who are preaching to be conservative and to focus only narrowly on certain concerns, what they're really saying is, let those people fall down and don't help them up. Let's not be a community. And I'm saying the exact opposite.
Thank you, Sam. Another question from the floor, please. This gentleman here in the black, thank you.
My name's Rick Bailey. For the purposes of full disclosure, Shane Bailey's my brother, and I'm really proud of him. But this isn't a question for Shane. It's a question for all the potential councillors. For me, business is an important part of Gawler. We know that a lot of people now are working from home, and those people are available to draw into Gawler. I'd like to know what motion you'd like to put to council to get people to come into Gawler more and spend more money in Gawler. This is people that live in Gawler themselves.
Thanks for the question. I'm going to invite councillors who we haven't, candidates that we haven't heard from yet to speak first, please.
Thank you. I've been chair of the Gawler Business Development Group for years. I did 4 years the first time, 8 years this time. I'm still currently serving. We work closely with businesses to help develop plans to bring people to Gawler to make it more attractive. There are things that council could do to work with us as well that would do that. There's a lot of cleaning, for instance, in the main street. There are ways that we can make the town more attractive. There are incredible examples of small towns in other countries who have been extremely successful. Many ideas have been put forward to council over the years, and the one response that I invariably get is maintenance. Can't do it, maintenance. Well, maintenance is actually what makes this really successful and is a draw card for people to be here. And so I would definitely like to see, if elected to council, a lot more effort put into drawing people into the town and giving them a really great experience.
Thank you, Louise. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I agree with Louise, but the problem we have with our town, and having lived here 44 years, 45 years, the police officer, having walked up and down the street several times a night and day, the parking problem is always there because of our street. We've got to realise this town was developed under horse and cart. We had a railway line down the middle of it. What happened years ago, we widened the footpath. To me, that wasn't a smart idea. We lost a lot of ground. You got less parking. It's hard to get through. I know myself, living here, when I go to Murray Street, I park at the back, walk through. Some of the hours for the elderly aren't long enough. I've spoken to the CEO about it and he's agreed. In some areas, we've extended the car parking. If you put your disabled sticker up and the car park says 2 hours, well, it's like Adelaide Council, you get double that time. That's things we need to do. And if I get to be mayor, that's what I want to enforce, to get the people to stay here to shop, because the rates in the main street are fairly high. Speaking to a person who owns a business here and one in Playford, he pays $20,000 a year rates in Gawler for the same premise and the same sort of business in Playford. He pays $12,000 a year and it's got better parking. So I agree, a great question. We need to improve the capability and the length of car parking in Gawler for people to stay around and spend some money. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Another question we might, over here, please.
Thank you. Ray Howson. I'm from Hillier and I came back to South Australia in the beginning of December last year after 30 odd years in Queensland. So please bear with me. I've spoken, I wrote an email, addressed it to two of the to the mayoral candidates, and I had a response from them both. I thank them for that. One of them was about the car parking outside of Woolworths, and there's been a lot of discussion about car parking tonight. I did get a response from Mayor Redmond. Part of the conversation that I had with her was about the cleanliness or lack of cleanliness in that car park. Now, I got the impression, because Mayor Redmond didn't actually address that, so I'm asking her tonight, is the cleanliness of Gawler an important consideration for her, or is she quite happy to continue with the standard that she is presenting to the town and to the community of Gawler, as I have noticed it since I came back into the town some months ago? Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it Ray? Yes. Thank you. Yes, I did respond to your email. Thank you for sending it through. Yes, I do like cleanliness. I'm a nurse. Nurses actually are quite obsessed with cleanliness and infection control. So one of the issues that we have in Gawler is working with the Department of Transport, who own the major arterial roads. One of the issues I have as we come into Gawler is the long grass. The department has a contract to cut that grass, and trying to get them to cut that grass so that it actually looks reasonable is quite challenging. I wrote a letter to the minister, and then I had a meeting with the minister, previous government, Minister Corey Wingard, Minister Wingard, he didn't actually sit down while I was talking to him. It was a bit disconcerting, but he said, "Oh, it should be happening today." So it took me getting a meeting with the minister to get the grass cut, which is completely unacceptable. We have a beautification plan, and there is some money in this year's budget to start looking at some entranceways and roundabouts. I think that's a really good way forward. It's going to take quite a lot of money. The department is in charge of cleaning that, but everyone blames council because it's always council that, because we're there on the ground. But we're happy to work with the department to get better outcomes for these roads as they come into Gawler. In regard to the Woolworths car park, it is owned by Woolworths. They contract council to do the parking permits and tickets, etc. And that happens to many of the car parks. The Phoenix car park is another one. So I think that I also had a meeting, and I think I put that in your email, Ray, that I had a meeting with the senior management of Woolworths, and they couldn't have cared less about extending the time. That was about the time. And I think that's a shame, because I think we need a little bit more time. 2 hours sometimes isn't long enough. It used to be all day, and they changed that. So it is important to have those discussions with those senior executives, ministers, but also encourage staff to have those discussions and improve the look of our town, because I think that it can be challenging when they're in charge and we're not.
Thanks.
But we've got opportunities with our beautification plan.
Thank you. Thank you. I think Shane wanted to respond to that one as well, please.
Thank you, Ray. I have been a trader in the main street longer than anybody here was on council, and probably anyone on staff. I used to start about 6:30 in the morning when I was building my business up. This is more than 20 years ago. And Alan and Marie used to sweep the main street every single morning, every weekday morning. And 3 days a week, they'd clean the multi-storey car park. I think, Ray, you're referring to the Woolworths car park as the multi-storey car park, which is the Town of Gawler car park. It's not a Woolworths car park, built for and paid for by a levy on businesses over several years. That car park stinks when you walk in the stairwell. I think you're probably talking about that, because it's a lavatory. There are toilets in those car parks that have been closed for several years, and there's discussion trying to get them open again so that maybe they could go in there to relieve themselves instead of the stairwell. I don't know why Alan and Marie, I know they're retired now, but they lost that contract, and the main street never gets cleaned, ever. It gets maybe twice a year with a street sweeper, but every single morning, Monday to Friday, Alan and Marie swept the street. But it doesn't happen anymore. And the rates haven't gone down because of it. They used to clean the main street, the Woolworths, if you referred to the Woolworths car park, the Town of Gawler car park, the multi-storey, 3 times a week, Alan was in there sweeping and scrubbing it. I don't know why it stopped. No one's been able to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shane. We might take another question from the floor, please. Yes, you may.
This is what we're talking about with the basics not being done. Kelvin Goldstone got on 4 years ago, and his mandate was, we want to beautify this town. Entrances, clean the streets. It's taken 4 years with this council, and it has not become a reality. They don't mind spending $500,000 for those gum trees to go along the Gawler East Link Road, when they could, if they're going to have gum trees, they could have bought tube stock. They'd be that big by now. $500,000 for that. $600,000 for boundary reform. And we can't get a street cleaner. We can't get the entrances beautified. And you hear all the talk and all the spin, oh, there's a plan. I've heard tonight there are plans, plans, plans. You know what? There are plans on the shelves and consultation reports that sit there. They fill archives, but nothing's being done. And that's the basics that can be done. Potholes can be fixed. Streets can be cleaned. They are the basics that we should be having our eye on. We haven't got the eye on the ball. We've dropped the eye, we've dropped the ball. We should be dealing with those things instead of the fantasies of boundary reform and expensive follies like apps. If you speak to Shane about the hundreds of thousands that have been wasted on that folly, and it took him years to eventually get the council to say, we got it wrong.
Thank you, Ian.
That's the problem we've got. And this is the time to change the council.
Thank you, Ian. Question at the front, thank you.
And the main street's dying and people don't want to stop. And you're telling me a second ago you can't even get the lawn mowed. Need a new council, I reckon.
Thank you for that comment. Any other questions from the floor?
Hello, my name is Jade Hancock and I am the current chairperson of the Youth Advisory Committee. My question to the candidates is, how does the youth fit into your plan for Gawler and how can the youth become more involved in local government?
Thank you for the question. Again, I'd encourage candidates we haven't heard from yet to respond first. Kelly?
Hi. I speak, I guess, from being a parent of a 7, 9 and 13-year-old, where the 13-year-olds grow up extremely quick now. Us as parents, we say, you know, get off of the Xbox, get off of the PlayStation, go outside. Now that I'm a parent of a 13-year-old son, I realise there is nowhere to go. I also realise that if there is somewhere to go, it's probably not a great idea or they're messing with the wrong people. Me personally, I would love to see space. That could be somewhere, they don't need a playground with more 6-year-old play equipment. I would love to see a water park personally, which will bring families. Families get fish and chips. Families walk past the cartridge shop and go, oh, I need a cartridge for my printer. They stop in at Java Hut. They stop in and they buy little things. The dads, you stay here with the kids, I'm going down to the pub. It's just what Australians do. Kids at adolescent, 13 to 20, they just want a space, grass, trees, shelter, somewhere to talk. A lot of families now are broken or mental health. My son has taught me that sometimes he just wants to talk. He wants to go somewhere that's safe and somewhere that's clean and to sit on the grass. And with the housing development, we find that a lot of yards don't have space for the children anymore, and that is why they are stuck inside on an Xbox. So I personally would like to see more areas just to, as my teenage son says, chill with my friends.
Thank you, Kelly. Angus?
So, believe it or not, I was one of those 13-year-old sons. So I'd like to apologize to my parents for being that, but that's how it was. Before getting involved in the Youth Advisory Committee, I would sit at home. I would sit at my computer, not really want to go out. And I would have loved a place to just hang out with my friends. So thankfully, the Youth Advisory Committee has a dedicated youth space that already tries to cater towards the teenage demographic, as opposed to just 5, 6-year-olds that realistically just want a kindergarten to go to after school. One of the big things that council needs is more programs for more young people. Currently, the programs address about 10 people sort of thing every single day. But after handing out things as simple as the Mayor Christmas cards competition to every single school, we've got a lot of pubs in Gawler. We've got more schools. There are so many kids in Gawler that aren't interested in community. They're not aware of what happens in Gawler. One of the other candidates is the business owner for the tabletop warfare in Gawler. They're not here tonight, I don't think, but they are very big on the same issue, on youth and being able to get out of the house and being able to engage with Gawler, and they've created a community for themselves there. That's a very small demographic of youth. That's more nerdy types like myself, people who are interested in board games and strategy games and all that sort of stuff.
Thanks, Angus.
Yep.
Thank you. Got a question in the middle there. Thank you.
Good evening. Jeff Phillips is my name. I live at Williston. Very short question to Ms. Redmond. Why did you get somebody from Victoria to authorise your notices?
Sorry.
Don't you have friends here?
She's my daughter.
But no, that was the question. Don't you
she's
have
my-
friends here, a next door neighbour, business person? That
Actually, she's my daughter. She's my daughter.
Thank you.
I'm allowed to have a family member authorise my product.
Thank
She's my
you for the
daughter.
question. We'll move
And
on
she grew
now.
up here in Gola. She went to
Thank
school
you.
here as well.
Thank you, Mayor Redmond. We have a question at the front, please.
Yes, thank you. Adrian Shackley. My question is the new planning and code and development rules have been a major issue for council and the community, and particularly they've reduced community involvement in planning. So I've got a question to the candidates. If you'd like to explain what you have personally done or lobbied for or wish to lobby for on the new council in relation to the role of the community in planning.
Hold on, we'll just see if we can hear from someone we haven't had a response from yet. No? To Louise? Oh, I beg your pardon.
That's okay.
To Helen.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, I share your concerns with the new Planning Act. As I think one of the previous candidates said, might have been, yes, Paul, we face a situation that the changes have meant that the heritage areas in Gola are now not recognised or barely recognised. So we have a situation on Church Hill where the previous plans were thrown out. It was absolutely not taken into consideration. And I was involved in providing the research and the history to explain why that heritage was put in place, why the community cared about it, why the community lobbied and did a lot of planning to get that in place. So I've been actively involved through watching what's happening with the current review at a state level of the planning code and putting forth ideas that communities are the best positioned to understand their own heritage, and being overridden with a one-size-fits-all by the state government isn't fair, and it isn't very conducive to community buying, renovating, and regarding that their heritage buildings are important. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
Yeah, this is something that I have pushed for motions to speak to the ministers and the local government association annual general meeting. The planning system seems to go in a cycle for the state government where it builds up and up and up, and then they say we've got to cut this red tape, and then they make it as simple as possible, cut out all of those annoying little things like residents being able to speak, and then gradually it gets added back up again as they realize that was actually necessary part of the process. And I think currently we're in a stage where they've reviewed the planning system. It wasn't a very good new planning system. We're advocating the best we can to the state government, but obviously it is the state government that decides.
Thank you, Cody. Just looking at time, we've probably got time for one last question.
It's not actually a question, it's an appeal. Mr. Modra mentioned the Gola Car Club, which is in a very frustrated situation with the Gola Council and the Gola administration. For 10 years, they've been trying to get land to put a building on that they're prepared to pay for, and we've got nothing. So you people who get into council, please get something for us. Thank you.
Thank you. One final question from someone we haven't heard from. Anyone? At the front, please.
Hi, my name is Baby Golan and I live in Golan South. I hear, especially from the new inexperienced candidates, the words of listen and have empathy to community members. How do you know what the community, the people in the Golan community need and what they want? So in other words, can the inexperienced, I'm focusing on the inexperienced candidates. Can you tell me what your strategy or your intention is to communicate with members of the community?
Perfect question to end on. Thank you. And I will definitely hear from someone we haven't heard from so far. Thanks, Mick.
Rightio, this is all pretty new to me, so I'm sitting here a bit bewildered with all that's going on. Speaking with a few of the other councillors, new people this afternoon, social media is probably the biggest thing to really get out there, which in the last few years, a lot of the political side of things have been taking that on board and using that. Putting ourselves out there, mobile numbers, phone numbers, people coming to connect to us and putting on a lot more community actual events. There's a lot of stuff that we could be doing out here that we're not doing. Christmas parties that we used to have before, they were fantastic events. Running things like the Valley Hot Rodders do up in the Tanunda. We got an excellent car club in Gola that could put a awesome event together where we could get a lot of people coming in to get and use our stuff. So
Thank you.
I think that's about it.
You don't sound bewildered at all.
Good on you.
One final response from someone we haven't heard from. Yes, thank you. Thanks, Brent.
No worries. Yeah, I think, as I said in my little presentation, that in this journey that I've experienced in the last few weeks, I've met so many people that I wasn't aware of. I have very small social media experience, and it's been a massive learning curve. But I think, and I've become aware of a lot of these. There's so many people in Gola and live in Gola and love Gola, and they're parts of communities that got to be represented, and they're parts of communities that live here and use our spaces, and we've got to really kind of collaborate with them. I strongly believe that, and that they are voices of pockets of people, and collectively they make the community. And I think we've got to work with those guys and just make this town a better place. Thanks for listening.
Brent. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the end of our allocated time, and I'm nothing if not a good timekeeper. I'd like to thank all the candidates for their time and their effort, particularly those, as we said, this is new to a lot of people. Public speaking might not be your thing. So thank you very much. And most importantly, thank you to all of you. It's so enjoyable to work with a full room of people who care clearly and deeply about their community. Thank you so very much for tearing yourself away from your families and your couches and your Netflix and whatever else you'd normally do on an evening like tonight. I'd like to direct you all, if you do have further questions for the candidates, their contact details are available online on the Electoral Commission of South Australia website. My understanding is that voting papers, if they're not received already, are on the way. So I encourage you all to exercise your democratic right to vote. Thank you very, very much, and good evening. Thank you.